There are a lot of data now pointing to the fact that eating during the nocturnal phase of the 24-hour cycle is very detrimental to one's health. In fact, when we eat can either enhance our health or can diminish our health. The study that I'm going to refer to next is what I would consider a major pillar of nutritional studies. This is a truly landmark study that was carried out by Sachin Pande, who is a professor at the Salk Institute of Biological Studies in San Diego, an absolutely phenomenal institution and an absolutely phenomenal researcher. The landmark paper that came from Sachin's lab was published in 2012. This was a paper in mice that set the basis for studies in humans that came later. And the title of this paper is Time-Restricted Feeding Without Reducing Caloric Intake Prevents Metabolic Diseases in Mice Fed a High-Fat Diet. So the title tells us a lot. It says that what's varied in this study is not what these mice ate, it was when they ate it. And the results are absolutely remarkable. There were 4 groups. One group of mice had access to just a normal mouse diet. And if you allow them to eat that stuff, what's called ad libitum, whenever they want, you just keep it in their food 24 hours a day, they will eat sometimes and then they won't eat at other times. Or in this case, they also had a condition where they gave them mouse chow in a time-restricted way, just for a certain number of hours each day, about 8 hours. Or they gave them a high-fat diet. That was a separate group, got a high-fat diet at any time they wanted. So this was kind of the carnival for mice, because mice really like high-fat, highly palatable foods, and so they got a lot of goodies and high-fat in their food. And then there was a 4th group that had access to the high-fat diet as much as they wanted to eat, but only during a restricted time period of each 24-hour cycle. Everything I'm going to tell you is true also for humans, and we know this now from human studies. One of the most important things to take away from this study was that mice that ate a highly palatable, high-fat diet, a great-tasting diet, but only during a restricted feeding window of each 24-hour cycle, maintained or lost weight over time. Whereas mice that ingested the same diet, same amount of calories, but had access to those calories around the clock, gained weight, became obese, and quite sick. And as an additional second point, the mice that restricted their feeding window to a particular portion of 8 hours of every 24-hour cycle actually showed some improvement in important health markers. And what was even more incredible is that mice that only ate during a particular feeding window also experienced some reversal of some prior negative health effects. So this study really lit up the world and got people excited about time-restricted eating. Now, an important point about when the feeding window falls within the 24-hour cycle. It is very important that the feeding window fall during the more active phase of one's day. So for humans, that's typically in the early part of the day or the later part of the day, but not at night. Put very simply, when you eat is as important as what you eat. In this study, they saw something really interesting, which was that not only did restricting food to a particular phase of the 24-hour cycle benefit things like lean body mass and fat loss and a number of health parameters, but it also anchored all the gene systems of the body and provided a more regular, stable, so-called circadian rhythm or 24-hour rhythm. You may be surprised to learn that 80% of the genes in your body and brain are on a 24-hour schedule. That is, they change their levels going from high to low and back to high again across the 24-hour cycle. And when those genes are high at the appropriate times and low at the appropriate times, meaning their expression is high and low at the appropriate times, and therefore the proper RNAs and proteins are made because DNA encodes for RNA, RNA is translated into proteins. When that happens, your health benefits. When those genes are not expressed at the right times, when they're high or low at the wrong times of each 24-hour cycle, that's when you get negative health effects. So if you want to be healthy, you want your organ health, your metabolic health to be entrained properly, you probably want to think about and perhaps even engage in time-restricted feeding.